I said those others aren't local at all.
Oh, they're not. You haven't been 60 years, you're just an option. Good afternoon. We'll open up this Senate Minerals Committee meeting. We're going to hear some interesting things today. And I don't usually go over all these rules, but man, I had a meeting in Casper where I really needed the rules. And I didn't read them to them, so maybe I should read some of these to you. Let's see. It says communication and meeting preparation, public, read the opening decorum script. So it's all about keeping the everything respectful and for both parties, the presenting parties and us. Address all comments to the chairman, refrain from use of individual names. Comments be directed to the issue under consideration. Testimony that strays far from this topic is out of order. We had to call one of them out of order on that. No personal nature speakers will refrain from that. Refrain from use of indecent or obscene language, fighting words or other language. And the other one, audience will refrain from shouting, booing, or clapping, or similar unruly behavior that impedes or disrupts the orderly conduct of the meeting. Okay, so with that, we'll call you out of order, and you can call us out of order if we're out of order. Okay, let's get started. We got two bills to hear today. Oh, we got to start with a roll call.
Senator Cooper,
Here.
Senator Jones,
Here.
Senator Nethercutt,
Excused.
Senator Rothfuss,
Here.
Chairman Anderson.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
We'll take these in order. And as soon as I found out what the order is, I'll send them in order. Okay, let's hear the joint resolution first. Senate Joint Resolution 1, State Management Federal Mineral Leases. And do we have somebody here to present that? Come right up and present then, Representative Worf. All right, good. Keep it civil.
That's what they tell me. Well, first of all, I appreciate the opportunity to come here. Not very often I get a chance to testify to the upper house, but I am grateful for that opportunity. Senator Ide had a conflict, so that's why he asked me to do this. So I co-chair the Federal Minerals Natural Resource Committee with Bob, or with Senator Ide. But this resolution is really simple. It basically goes through asking our congressional delegation to introduce a bill that enacts a law that amends the Federal Mineral Leasing Act to authorize the state of Wyoming to administer and manage the mineral leasing on federal lands. And it mirrors, I believe, I don't know if you guys were aware, I believe it was a joint letter that was sent by both our Appropriations Committee to Congress asking for this. So all this is a reiteration of the things that they had asked in their letter. And we felt that it was important for us to bring that back up and mirror that. So that's what it does. I'm not a big fan of resolutions because I don't really think they have the weight that a bill has. But I think this is important that we send a clear message to our congressional delegation that we don't want it to be a request. We want them to actually do a bill. And that's what they responded to the letter that was sent to them. They basically said, we'll look at it. And so we're trying to send something a little stronger saying, no, we don't just want you to look at it. We actually want you to enact a bill. And so that's what it does. It goes through and it tells them, currently with the way that the federal mineral leases go, we get 48% of the royalties, and the state or the state gets 48, the federal government's taking 52. They started taking that extra 2% because they felt that that's what it cost them to manage it. And basically that's what we're saying is let's flip the script and allow it to be changed to where the state of Wyoming has that. We can keep the extra 2% on the federal mineral lease and flip it back to where we're actually responsible for managing that. And it just goes through, has lots of whereas statements. I'm not going to read the bill. I kind of count on the fact that you guys have read it. If you got questions about it, I'd be more than happy to answer it. But I think that pretty well sums it up. You know, the last thing it does is the Secretary of State of Wyoming is to transmit copies of this resolution, which is pretty standard when we pass joint resolutions. But with that, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. And we can go through the bill page by page if that's the desire, Mr. Chairman. Okay, that's what I thought. So,
Okay, questions for Representative Wharf? The co-chairman of the committee. Yes, Senator Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Wharf, do you know when that letter was sent from Corpse?
you know, I apologize. I don't. I just remember it was kind of late summer. I want to say it was in July. I just remember I was on the way to our meeting. We actually had a meeting the day that it was put in a local paper. And that's how I found out about it, as I read it there. And Senator Ide was unaware of it. When I called him and talked to him about it, we presented that and talked amongst our committee and decided that we wanted to send something a little more, I guess, I don't want to say forceful, but a little more direct. The letter that they got back kind of offended us a little bit. And it didn't come, I want to make sure that's clear, it didn't come from our congressional delegation. It came from a staffer who just said, yeah, we get time, we'll look at it. Well, I think when this body feels important enough to send a letter, I don't think it should be, we'll look at it. I think that should have already been on their table. And so this is just a little bit more direct. We're actually asking them to actually craft a bill to take advantage of the current makeup composition we have in this administration. I think it's probably one of our best opportunities to make some pretty significant gains. And I apologize because I did not print out the fiscal note when I printed this, so I don't have the fiscal note with me. But there isn't one. I was going to say, I think what it just says is nobody knows because it would fluctuate, but it would be basically allow us to get that income so that we would then be responsible for managing federal leases, all those things that come into that. But we felt it was better for us. And I mean, it's kind of like when we talk about the next one. I think when the state was new, we might not have had the ability to do all these things, but I think, you look at a baby, when we first started, we were an infant. We've learned to crawl, we've learned to walk, and now we're wanting to run. And that's what we're trying to do is say, let us have the opportunity to show that we can manage our own federal resources here. And so that's what this is talking about, us taking over that management.
Representative, you're thinking that somewhere in here where you're asking to receive the 2% that the feds use now for administration of the lease. I'm good with that, but I don't see it in here.
Yeah, and it probably doesn't say it as I said it. It talks about us taking over the management, and that's where that comes from. Is they take the 2% to manage it, and we're saying let us keep that 2% and we'll manage it. So
yeah.
We would have to take on the cells. There would be some added things that the state would have to do, but we would be responsible and in charge of our own mineral leasing. And the idea was if we get in a situation where we have the government shut down, that has the potential to have dire consequences for us. However, if we've got the ability to do our own leasing, the state could continue to move forward with getting leases put out for bid and leases approved, and basically allow the state of Wyoming still to function even if our federal government shut down. And so this happened, you know, they hadn't shut the government down yet, but there was some talk, if you remember, kind of late summer, early fall, they were talking about potential having a shutdown, which we did have. But that's really what this is it's setting the state up to fill the role that the federal government has been doing. And the way that we're paying for that is by clawing that money back. But
Representative, I guess I'm worried about the feds going ahead and keeping their 2% and letting us manage all the leasing anyway. And it'd be better if we said, we're not only going to take over the management, we're going to take over the 2% too, but we can look at that.
well,
Any other questions for the good representative? Yes, Senator Cooper.
I got to follow up on the letter. That letter was from Joint Corps?
it
Is that
was, from my understanding, and this is what I want to make it clear, it was the chairman of both the Senate and the House Appropriations Committee. I do not think the entire committee was aware of the letter. My understanding was it was just the two chairmen. They signed it and they sent it out.
Of appropriations, not.
Of appropriations, and did they consult with Minerals at all? Do you know?
I don't know that they did. I mean, you guys would be the mineral side, but
No,
you
they
know,
didn't.
Yeah.
No, they didn't.
Yeah,
I'm like you. I read it in the paper too.
Yeah, and see, and I didn't think it was a bad idea, but
Yeah.
I do think, you know, and I guess I look at it, if we're asking our delegation to draft the bill, the assumption is that they would be working with us. And so I'm not worried that we haven't necessarily, I didn't want to tell them specifically how to do it. It walks through that and basically says, you know, they offered so many oil and gas leasing stuff, and we want to make sure that we can at least maintain what they've been doing. But the real genesis of this was fear of the government shutting down and what that could do. We have an administration that's pretty favorable to our, I guess, our key resources in this state. And if they shut down the government, it shuts down their ability to function. We think it's important enough that the state be able to continue to operate. And that's what this would allow us to do. But it is kind of an unknown because I don't know what bill they're going to present, but that's what we're directing them to do. We talked through all the things that the BLM has been doing, and basically we're saying the state would take that over.
Other questions for the able representative? Oh, yes, Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, do you have do you know the number for what the 2% is equal to right now? I've seen it before, but I can't remember what that amounts to.
And I apologize, but I don't remember either, but I know it's a significant amount. It's, you know, and I want to say it runs in my mind that we get around $20 million in royalties. And so if that represents 48%, we would be getting 2% more, which,
I think Representative, it's a lot more than that.
well,
I
and it
can't
might
remember
be
what it is,
20
but
might come to to my county. I just,
I bet that's accurate.
yeah, I was going to say, I know it's a big sum.
Yeah.
I don't think it's
Okay.
in the billions, but it's probably in the hundreds of millions.
I think that's accurate. Yeah, I can dig into the Craig report and try and find that, but didn't do that ahead of time. And maybe somebody who's going to testify has that number. Mr. Chairman, I share some of your concerns that there's not a lot of specificity in the section 1 in what it asks for. Asking explicitly for the management aspect of it seems appropriate. And the management 2%, unless I missed it, I went through it twice, isn't mentioned in any of the whereases either. And it seems like that would be an essential component to ask for. Another aspect, I guess, is the breadth of the ask, even though it is specific to mineral leasing. But I was curious if there was conversation around, would the state want, I'm going to call it primacy, leasing primacy for all federal lands? It seems it might be more appropriate that the state would want to be potentially selective in some way. And I don't know if that was discussed. So that's my question.
Well, and Mr. Chairman, if I may, I believe that was the intent, is that we would set it up to where the state would be determining where we did leasing and at what level. And I assume that the state wouldn't run faster than they were able to. But we wanted to give the state the ability to continue operating in the event that they shut down. So there again, I can't really answer what the bill would actually be. It's rather, when we walk through all the things in here, we referenced the big, beautiful bill and all these things that were going on at that time. But that is the intent, is to let us take it over. And I just assume that we wouldn't necessarily automatically lease everything. I would think that the departments that have been working with the federal agency and how leasing is done, that I would assume we would mirror that. I don't think we want to change the way that our leases are bid out or anything like that. It's more or less just letting our departments that have been kind of working with the federal government taking on more of the responsibility, and the government would still have a say, obviously, in what we do, but it would be following along the same lines. We're not looking at changing. Nothing in this would change the way that we do leasing. The only change would be that the state would be taking that over rather than the federal government taking it over.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, follow up?
Yeah.
So you would expect it to basically be implemented the same way as we lease state lands, but that would then be extended to, we'll say, certain federal lands at this point in time. That's kind of the intent. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and the assumption is that those entities that work with our oil and gas, the mineral leasing in the state, that they already kind of have a plan on how, you guys know more about the mineral end than I do, but the assumption I have is that they would more or less just take it on and they would start doing similar things. I don't think the state, if all of a sudden they were given that opportunity, is going to go hog wild and have leasing all over. I would assume the state's still going to do it in a developed manner, that they would proceed on the areas where the state wants to develop, and assuming that that's in conjunction with the federal government also wanting that. They're partners in the deal, but we would take over more of the management responsibilities of how the leasing is done. Like I said, the main thing is just to ensure that the state can function if the federal government doesn't. And that's really, in a nutshell, what that was all about.
Follow up?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. One of the concerns I have with how that might play out with state lands, all of the state agencies that have interest in that state land are state agencies. So when we're working mineral leases on state lands, it's very easy to have that conversation. DEQ gets involved, OGCC gets involved. Everybody is there, and they're effectively at the same level, so to speak, right?
Yep.
And easy to work together. With this proposal, one of the challenges I see is it would be the state trying to work on mineral leases in the absence of having any authority or capacity really to work directly with the federal agencies that would have interest in, for the most part, surface estate leasing at that point in time. And I was wondering if that was discussed. I don't know how that would play out very well. Again, unless it was a very specific MOU, which is more restrictive than this, where it would be like, these certain lands we will hand over for management purposes. And then honestly, maybe there's even some surface estate management, but I was curious what was discussed.
Well, and we probably didn't drill down to that specific, but I would assume that the committee would have looked at that for Congress to get it through, they're going to have to hold it pretty tight. It's not like they're going to say, that we can do whatever we want. And like I said, my idea, I guess the concept, the way I would approach it is, like I said, when we first was a state, we were kind of in our infancy in the cradle. We relied more on the federal government. As we've learned to crawl and walk, we've shown that. And part of this is to be able to show that the state can do these things. And the hopes are that we can show that we can effectively run, so that if in fact the federal lands are ever transferred to the state, that we've demonstrated to the people that live here that we can responsibly manage the lands that are entrusted to this state to be managed for the people. And I'm not worried about it. I actually think it would be better with us having that management authority over the development of mineral leases, because all the players that would be involved in that are all state people and they're accessible. Trying to get things done in Congress, it's pretty hard. So this is a heavy lift. I don't know. I assume that with a favorable administration that we have, it lends to this being a favorable outcome. But ultimately, that's all we're trying to do is get them to do something, as opposed to just saying, we'll look at it. Because we think that it's important enough that we should be trying to show that the state can run, and not just to our federal partners, but to the citizens that live in this state, so that they're not afraid that, the state's going to go wild and start leasing in places where the citizens wouldn't want it. But I think it's better. It makes more sense to me to have our people in that management role. They're going to be more responsive to, I think, the people that live in this state. Now,
No, I think I'm good there. Thank you. Appreciate that, Representative Wolf.
Senator Jones.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Worf, do you have any idea of what a timeline could be on this if it were successfully passed through Congress?
Mr. Chairman, I wish I could answer that, but I mean, I really don't have a lot of, I don't want to say I don't have faith in our Congress, but it is so chaotic right now. This is a very heavy lift, and the committee recognizes that it is a heavy lift, but we believe that the opportunity is now, and the longer we wait, the more time that goes by. And so that's why, I do. I just think if we could send a strong letter telling our congressional delegation, because I know they listen to us, but I think it has more meaning if the legislature would say, yeah, we think this is important enough that we should have that management over our lands.
Okay. Follow up? No? This is kind of a broad brush you're using here. On line 4 on that first page is mineral leasing on federal lands located in Wyoming. That includes Yellowstone, and I'm all for you. I'm all for you. I want to do some leasing up there too. So all federal lands, I think probably we would only be talking about BLM and maybe Forest Service or something like that. But that first statement says on federal lands located in Wyoming, and wow,
Well,
that's a lot of land.
And Mr. Chairman, like I said, it's going to be a heavy lift just to get something through. But I mean, even if, I think a lot of it is going to be like our next bill that we're going to talk about. Maybe it isn't giving us total ability to do it, but giving us ability to, maybe as Senator Rothfuss said, maybe they would just say these areas of the state would demonstrate that we could handle that management. And so to me, that's all we're trying to get at. And I think in order for us to get anything out of Congress, there probably would have to be some compromises that would be made. And that's one. I mean, I really doubt the people, even though you and I may share some of the same beliefs about Yellowstone National Park, I think there'd be a lot of pushback from the residents of the state. They don't want to see that developed neither. But you know, it's one of those things that if we ever get the ability to manage all the lands in this state, we probably never will get Yellowstone National Park under state management. And that's probably a good thing. A lot of our members or our citizens are probably relieved to hear that that's not the goal. But it is, as you said, as you mentioned, it's primarily talking about Forest Service, BLM, and working with the state. But
All right,
all right,
all right. Thanks, Representative.
thank you.
Anybody else to introduce this bill? Anybody else like to speak on this bill then? The able representative introduced it.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Ryan McConaughey with the Petroleum Association of Wyoming. Just wanted to get up real quick, say we do support the effort to bring the management of the federal leasing program to the state of Wyoming. Look at it similar to what DEQ already does with certain things related to air quality and that sort of thing. I think it's important for us to recognize that this would not give the state of Wyoming carte blanche authority to do whatever it wants with mineral leasing, when would be required to follow all federal rules and regulations required under the various laws related to mineral development. But just as the representative said, give some local control and people here in the state of Wyoming that would be responsible for administering these programs. And so therefore we would support. Don't need to go into any other depth, but happy to try to answer some questions if the committee has any.
Questions for Ryan for the PAW? No questions? Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is it on?
Is that, you guys can hear me? Great. I'm Aaron Bannon. I'm the Executive Director of the Wyoming Wilderness Association. We are concerned about this bill, primarily because, in our opinion, it would increase the burden of the state to manage federal lands without increasing any revenue that the state receives to manage them. So I would point out that the BLM and the federal agencies do a fairly good job of processing leases as they come under President Trump's executive order restoring quarterly lease sales. That lease sales are carefully considered, and any lease sales that don't move through are reconsidered at the end of the year. So if we look at last December's lease sale, which took on any leases that weren't bid on at the auction, only a couple moved forward. It does seem that energy companies have the opportunity to put forward the leases that they want, to bid on the leases that they want, that our mineral resource is being adequately considered and moved forward by the federal government. And we just don't need that extra cash burden. One other thing I would point out too, I was in, I believe it was a House Agriculture meeting yesterday, and House Joint Resolution 2, I think, is the bill that actually shifts the 2% back to the state. And I'm trying to recall a number that was in there. I think it's a $40 million number that will be restored to the state without having to take on that added burden of managing the federal lease and adhering to all the federal laws that govern those public lands. And I stand for questions.
Okay, Aaron, thank you. Questions for Aaron? I have a couple. How do you feel about us leasing Yellowstone Park for drilling? You
don't
okay with
feel
that?
great about that.
Yeah. I suppose you would come out against that, huh?
I think I'd share that.
Long ways away.
I had one more and I can't remember. That first one was so good. Shoot. What was the second one? I guess that first one will do. Any other questions for Aaron? Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else like to speak on this Joint Resolution 17? No, SF 17, Good Neighbor Authority. SJ 1, yeah, why am I writing on that one? Yeah, yeah, I guess so. That's why I lost my second question. Yeah. Is there, and there's somebody on the
Yes,
Zoom?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, let's hear from the Zoom guy. Oh, there you are. Go ahead. Identify
All right.
yourself.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Kelly Carpenter with the Wyoming Farm Bureau Federation. Thanks for the opportunity to join virtually today. The state's mineral industry impacts every Wyoming citizen, and that's why our membership would like to voice our support for this Senate joint resolution. All too often, we've seen the policy pendulum swing between federal administrations and, as mentioned before, persistent threats of government shutdowns that can result in drastically reduced lease sales. This hurts our state and legacy industries within it. We believe state management would help facilitate lease sales that would be managed efficiently, effectively, and consistently to yield the highest return to Wyoming from the minerals within its borders. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Questions for the Farm Bureau. Questions for the Farm Bureau. Hearing none. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for.
Thank you.
And that's it on Zoom.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
That's it on the Zoom and the room. So we'll close public testimony. Committee, what's your pleasure?
I'll move the bill for discussion.
Moved by Rothfuss.
second
Seconded by Cooper for
Mr. Chair.
conversation.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead with your conversation.
The idea of a system where we work with the feds for primacy of specific areas that are mutually agreed upon. And then for those areas, we take our 2% and then we effectively have primacy oversight. I think that narrow scope is a really good idea. And if we could pull that off, that would be great. We would do an excellent job. It would be mutually beneficial and we could target it so that it was just the appropriate lands, which regrettably, Mr. Chairman, I do not believe would include Yellowstone. But a lot of us know where those lands would probably end up being. So I can get behind that, and I just circulated an amendment that gets at that is a little bit more complicated for the section 1 that I could read if we want to go that direction, if others are interested. My other concern is I would take out about half the pages of whereases. I went through them and it can get down to a much shorter set of whereases that just gets right to the heart of it. So if we did want to work it, as I said, I have an amendment that lays out that narrower desire, which I think is specifically consistent with what Representative Worf laid out as his vision. The broad language, I think, would be disconcerting to a lot of people, and me included, the idea of just taking over wholesale leasing of all federal lands just scares me a little bit to go that far. So those are my thoughts, and that's why I made the motion in case there's interest in doing that.
Does the second want to speak? Senator Cooper.
I'm gonna have to go along with Senator Rothfuss on this. You know, this is one of those really good ideas that's as presented is pretty much a pipe dream. If we can come specifically to primacy on some issues, I think that's the right way to go. It doesn't necessarily have to be, this is addressing leasing. A lot of the problems we have are less about leasing than they are the day-to-day operations of oil and gas or coal or whatever it might be. I'm also quite bothered by the fact that this came to us from corporations and appropriations without ever consulting minerals. This is something that needs to be set down and vetted thoroughly by the Minerals Committee. It's coming from the wrong place. It doesn't address the actual needs that we have. And for that reason, I'm going to end up being a no on it.
You're good. You're a no anyway. Okay. And Mr. Chairman, that's fine. I'm happy to
Are you on? You're not
Oh,
on.
my. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought I pushed the button. I think I did push the button. I just
You
really
did.
missed. And again, if you and Senator Jones want to hear the amendment, I know Senator Jones has it on her phone, but I can read that. We can try, or at the same time, we can move on and work on it more later. And I'd leave it up to what your thoughts are. I can read it aloud if need be. It's not that long. See
Are
what
you ready
Senator,
to
see
speak
what
there,
Senator
Senator
Jones
Jones?
thinks. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I do like Senator Raff's amendment, and I do think it addresses maybe some of the things also that Senator Cooper's talking about. I'm also wondering is that time is of the essence, and just wondering if this wouldn't be something that needed to be done sooner rather than later. If
All right, should we work it then? Do you want to work your amendment? I
Sure.
think I agree with you that some of the whereases need to be pulled out of here because we're trying to get a message to our congressional delegation to do some action for us.
Right,
They know a lot of those whereases, so,
they do.
they're living those whereases.
Well,
So anyway,
sure, Mr. Chairman, let's try working it then.
all right, let's do that.
I would start on, I think it was page 2. On page 2, beginning with line 15, the whereas, delete all the way through page 7, line 14. And that's just a lot of history. And then line 16 gets back into just the fact that there's been inconsistent, unpredictable, and subject to political delays. So that's sort of the key concept. To me, that provides sufficient background for that first part. And then on page 8, my motion would continue to delete lines 12 through 22, which is just kind of theory discussion of the 10th Amendment, which again, I don't think the 10th Amendment is actually applying to the ask here because we're asking for primacy under the Leasing Act. So that's basically deferring to federal law, and we're not asking for anything beyond federal law. So I think that's unnecessary. So that'd be my first motion, is just to trim the whereases.
Is there a second to the trimming the whereases? Seconded by Jones.
And if there was any one of those paragraphs, Mr. Chairman, that anybody like is in love with, then by all means, just reinstate it and point to it. But that was my list.
Not hearing any,
All right.
not hearing any.
Question on that amendment.
Just 1 second. We've got one minute. Representative, did you
Yeah.
want to speak?
Senator Cooper said something that I want to make sure before you vote no on it. This came from the Federal Natural Resource Select Committee.
Okay.
What kind of the genesis of it was the article or the letter that was sent. That's what I referenced. But this came from your Federal Natural Resource Select Committee. And this I think was vetted pretty good. Obviously, we didn't write any of this. It's what LSO helped us to accomplish. And I agree. To me, if we can shorten and make it more condensed, I'm 100%. If you guys always make things better, so I'm not opposed to that.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Representative Wharf. Thank you. Okay, no further discussion. It's just a voice vote. All in favor of the motion to eliminate the whereases, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Do we have another motion on the
Yep, Mr.
joint
Chairman.
resolution?
So I move to amend the section 1, and I'll read through it as amended. It provides a lot of the provisions we just discussed. So section 1, that the Wyoming Legislature requests that Congress enact legislation amending the Mineral Leasing Act to authorize the Secretary of the Interior to enter into cooperative agreements with the state of Wyoming, under which the state may, at its election and subject to federal approval, assume administrative primacy for mineral leasing on specified federal lands located in Wyoming, or excuse me, within Wyoming. And then such authorization shall, A, apply only to federal lands mutually designated by the state and the secretary under a cooperative agreement. B, preserve federal ownership of the lands and underlying mineral estate. C, require state administration to be consistent with applicable federal law unless otherwise expressly provided by Congress. D, allow the state and the secretary to modify or terminate any cooperative agreement by mutual consent. And E, this is the 2%, provide for revenue distribution consistent with existing federal statutory formulas, provided, however, that for mineral resources developed on lands designated under a cooperative agreement with the state of Wyoming, the 2% administrative cost deduction authorized under 30 USC 191B shall be allocated to and retained by the state of Wyoming in lieu of retention by the federal government. So that's my motion. I think it carries out all of what we discussed as kind of being the shortcomings. And to me, at that point, it's just a clean primacy agreement on leasing on specified lands where the state would benefit with the 2% if it's mutually agreeable, and the state's under no obligation, the feds are under no obligation. And to me, that's a good pathway.
There's a motion to modify the language in paragraph 1. Is there a second? Second by Cooper. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? I really like that you threw that 2% in there because I think that's important that we say we want that 2%. So I think that's where, will you give
Yeah.
that to them?
No, I hope she wrote it down fast enough.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm definitely going to give her the.
Would you?
I didn't have your email address handy and I sent it to the committee, but not you, so I'll get that moment.
So no further discussion on the amendment to the paragraph 1. All in favor of that amendment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Mr. Chairman,
Are you gonna, you have her number?
I'm gonna go get it from her just one
Oh,
second.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
At this point, I think it's actually a good thing if we were to do that. So I'd be an aye vote now.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
I think with the amendments, it makes it much more palatable. I would have really liked to see this come through the whole minerals committee and be considered by everyone. I think for whatever reason, we were circumvented, and I don't approve of that, but in the interest of moving the bill forward, I'll support it with those amendments.
Okay, as soon as Sue gets the amendment and knows what it is. You have it, Sue? You know what we're voting on?
It will be.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right, that's the amendment we're voting on. All in favor of that amendment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That amendment carries. Now we're down to the bill itself as we have amended it quite a bit. You'll get to take that back to the House committee and see what Hyder thinks about all of our amendments. So, and I think you'll get to do that too, won't you? Yeah, okay. All right, you'll know the history on all that then.
They don't disagree with you. You know, I mean, LSO put together the document as we requested it. I have faith and confidence that you guys made a better resolution, so appreciate it.
I think it hits the deck of running a lot better and it spells out what we want out of this thing. Good. All right, let's do a roll call vote then for this Senate Joint Resolution 1.
Senator Cooper,
Aye.
Senator Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Nethercott has left a absentee vote of aye. Senator Rothfuss,
Aye.
Chairman Anderson.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, you have 5 ayes.
So Representative Wharf, you snuck by one more time. Yes, I do. We'll move right on to Senate File 17. Good Neighbor Authority Amendments. And I think we have some people who are going to talk on this also. So go ahead and introduce it and
Yes,
Give
thank
to
you,
the
Mr.
public.
Chairman. And I guess just once again, in reference to what Senator Cooper said, I don't know how we can better integrate the Federal Natural Resource Select Committee with the Mineral Committee, but I would be willing to visit with you if we continue on doing this. I don't disagree. I think it's important. Like I said, we just found out about that on the way to the meeting. And so that's how that evolved. But if we can come up with a way to better interact, I would really appreciate any suggestions you have. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll jump into this. Senate File 17, which deals with the Good Neighbor Authority. This, to me, is kind of like what we're trying to do with the BLM, but this is with Forest Service. And we're already doing those things. But this Senate File 17 sets up the ability for our state lands to take on more good neighbor type projects. They tend to be some of the smaller projects that a lot of our smaller forestry businessmen are looking for. But this sets up the way for the Forest Service, or not the Forest Service, our state forestry department to accept grants, gifts, transfers, bequests, and donations. And it would allow the state forester to accept these grants so that we could do more projects and get more projects done to help our forest get into a better, healthier situation. It would allow them to use this money for hiring additional employees. So as they get more money coming in through donations, which I anticipate those would probably be coming from nonprofit organizations like the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Mule Deer Foundation. Some of those projects, I think if we had the opportunity to accept money, that would allow the state forester to do a lot more. And this is not, they are also told that they can't accept any interest in real property for purposes of the Good Neighbor Authority projects. But this really is, it opens the door and provides a vehicle for our state forester to build on this Good Neighbor Authority. And I'm not sure, we've got people here that'll talk about some of the projects that have been done. And I think there's some handouts that they've provided you, but this is just an expansion of the Good Neighbor Authority, really just creates an opportunity for the state forester to accept additional monies so that the state's not having to give more money to the forester, but it would also allow the state forester to hire employees based upon their ability to do so. So with that, if you got any questions, I'd be more than happy to address them.
Questions for the presenter? Yes, Senator Rothfuss.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I didn't understand on page 3 you mentioned it, but that the state forester shall not accept any interest in real property for purposes of Good Neighbor Authority projects. Why is that? Where does that come from? I don't know why we'd add that.
LSO put it in there, and I wish I could tell you. I didn't really, I wasn't planning on presenting this. I
Yeah.
found out yesterday. But I honestly don't know. I just know that that's something that LSO put in there, and I assume it has to do with concern over real property being given to the state forester, that it wouldn't generate, they couldn't really use it to generate interest.
Hmm.
I think the idea is to make sure that the money and resources are not going to grow the organization, but to grow additional projects.
Mhm.
That's my supposition, but I don't know. So I think maybe it has to do with things that are given, you know, and I can't imagine, I'm thinking about real property, like if somebody gave some timber to the state forester that they couldn't get interest off that, or that they wouldn't have an interest in that they have to put it in to some type of a forestry type project that it would have,
Okay.
you know, they couldn't basically amass real properties. That's the only thing I can think of, but I don't know. And do you know, maybe?
Okay, we've
Mis-
got some public testimony.
Yeah,
to address
maybe,
that. No worries.
maybe, Mr. Chairman, somebody can save me on
Yeah,
that,
you're
but
gonna
that's
flip
one
me.
I don't really recall. I know that was something that was put in there by LSO.
Okay.
Follow up?
Yeah,
Follow
Mr.
up?
Chairman, different question. The $6 million each year, it's my understanding that those are all other funds, non-state funds, through donations and or through U.S. Forest Service funding. So no new state funds for any, and
Yeah,
that includes for the
that-
new positions that would be anticipated and supported, they'd be supported through these external funds. Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that is the intent, is that we're anticipating that we could get $6 million. And I'm sure that our Director of State Forestry can answer that. I'm
Perfect.
sure that she helped us come up with that number.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm looking at that. One line says it's sold federal timber through the state contracting system, and it will generate $6 million.
And that is,
Okay, all
Yeah,
right.
and
So does all that 6 million come from that, from those sales?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
I'll let the State Forest Director address that, Mr. Chairman, but yes, and you would like to come up, Kelly?
You're
Yeah.
gonna call a
More
friend,
more
are
than
you?
welcome to come up here and get me out of the
Come
hot
on up
seat.
here and get him off the hook.
You did so.
Well, I'm pinch hitting.
Good afternoon. Chairman Anderson, my name is Kelly Norris. I'm the Wyoming State Forester. I'll have Matt quickly introduce himself as well.
Mr. Chairman, Matt Marshall, I'm the Assistant State Forester for Operations.
So do you want me to answer that question in particular? Which one do we want to start with?
Why don't you just present it however you'd like to, Kelly?
Okay,
Since you're the state forester.
all right, well, and Matt's going to help me here because he was going to actually present this while I was up in appropriation. So this is our Good Neighbor Authority. So Good Neighbor Authority, just to back it up a little bit, is in the Farm Bill, and this was John Barrasso's baby back in the day. We were trying to find solutions to really the federal government and how ineffective they are in getting management done on the ground. So what solution came up is, let's look to the states. And the states are more effective with how we do work. And when you look at forestry and timber sales in particular, you can take a Forest Service contract or you could take a state contract. And many of you, some of you are located, I know some of your small contractors, and they're going to tell you they want a small state permit sale over a huge Forest Service contract, right? And the Forest Service just has gotten so bureaucratic, basically, that they don't have that flexibility in the system. So what the Good Neighbor Authority does is really, we sell that federal timber on the ground through our state contracting systems, okay? And not only are we selling federal timber on Forest Service land, we're also doing it on BLM lands as well, because those are critical areas in some portions of the state. So what we have grown over the years is we started, I think, our first one was in the Black Hills. And the reason it was in the Black Hills is the Forest Service didn't gain access. And They didn't want to work with the Forest Service, but they'll work with the state, the private landowner. So again, we sold that timber through our state contracting system. And what's beautiful about this program is because we have agreements with the Forest Service, we hold that timber revenue in our agreements. So when you're asking about that 6 million, we sold in the last year over 12.26 million board feet of timber. We just sold a 5 million board timber sale in Bear Lodge, Ranger District in the Black Hills. All that revenue is being held in our accounts, okay? That's a big deal for Wyoming because not only do we get to hold that money, we get to help make decisions on where that money goes back on the ground. So Wyoming's now getting to have influence on where we say we think our priorities are in these forests. And so there's real value to all of this. We worked with Select Federal all summer long. We took them out on a couple different projects, talked about the value, and the statute right now has a limitation to how many people we can hire. And we have hit our max. So we have, we're allowed about 4 full-time permanent positions, and then it's 6 at-will employee contracts. When you think about seasonal work, we lose then that at-will employee contract. So one at-will employee contract is a seasonal. So it would be great if we had a flexibility in the system to say, hey, we just need a seasonal over here for this summer, right? We don't have that flexibility right now the way the statute is set up because not only do we have full-time employees, technicians, we also have full-time year-round at-will employee contracts working in our districts with our district foresters. And so this is really taking a hard look at, hey, we were asked specifically from Select Federal, how do we do more of this? We have now a forest soup over in the BT that wants to do some work. We got Lincoln County commissioners wanting to see some work done. And we're like, well, we're maxed out. So let's look at some flexibility in this system and grow this where it needs to grow and move it around where it needs to move. And so that's really what this bill is about, is specifically that. Do you have anything else you want to add into that, either of you?
No, you did a fabulous job. I don't know if you want to.
Oh, the real estate. I will answer that too, Chairman. That's a good question. When we were looking at this in particular, we have a hard time with paying for employees sometimes through the federal funding. I believe we shared with you just recently our shared stewardship agreement that we just recently signed. We went to the Forest Service and said, I need more money to pay for these employees. And so they said, hey, let's do an updated shared stewardship agreement. We were just recently, we're going to see 2 million come into the state of Wyoming to help pay for these employees. But what if, you know, an NGO has a project? What if a utility company says, look, we have this utility line, we really need this dealt with over here in the Uintas. Can we give the state of Wyoming some money to do this project work? And hey, we're going to help fund maybe some of the employees' time to get this work done. So that's what this bill also does. But one of the things, I think it was Senator Larson, didn't want to see that this all of a sudden in the donation side, that state forestry start getting property. And so he specifically, I think, called out to not to have property be part of this, and that's why that's there.
Yep. Senator Rothfuss.
Okay, well, Senator Larson's not here to argue with, so I'll just ask you, is that something that seems likely? I mean, I don't share that same sensitivity, and we have an Office of State Lands that can dispose of lands. We even have a statute that says that we can't, you know, acquire additional lands beyond a certain point, or the state has to start distributing it. So it would basically be liquidated. In other words, there's already a statute in place that addresses this. So I'm trying to see, it seems like there might be an occasion where this is the right approach and all the rest of our statute would take care of it appropriately. So I'm trying to see if there's any reason why we need this here.
Mr. Chairman, Senator, we don't foresee somebody providing state forestry property and there's no way there's such a process for federal to give away property. So I'm unaware of an example of where that would come into play.
Okay, thank you.
And that is just that one paragraph, really is all that talks about that property contributions, isn't it, on page 3? That's the only place I think I see it. anyway. All right, other questions for the state forester or her able assistant? Oh, yes, Senator Jones.
Mr. Chairman. Are we ramping up our efforts for allowing the timber sales and all of it right now? We have so much debt around the whole state.
Chairman Anderson, Senator, yes, we are. And we'll be able to do a bit more based on having some additional flexibility in being able to hire, in particular, over in your neck of the woods. A part of our updated shared stewardship agreement is looking at 2 pilot programs. In particular, it'll be in the Bridger Teton and in the Bighorns, where state forestry is going to be looking at a larger landscape scale area, and we will be just selling the timber out of that area and managing the timber, specifically administering the sales, creating all the sales, and doing all that work. And the reason for that is because we really, like we talked about, the smaller contractors and rebuilding them up and taking the time to bring back that local economy. That's our niche. We care deeply about that when it comes to state agencies and what that means to our local communities. And so that is the 2 areas that working with both our forest soups, we have strong hope. There's solid leadership in both those areas where we'll be doing and increasing more of that type of work.
One question, if we increase all this leasing and produce more timber, do we have enough mills to process it, or does some of that have to go out of state?
Chairman Anderson, some of it is going out of state right now. So for example, the Bighorns and the Shoshone both have wood coming off of them that go up to Livingston, Montana. It's interesting, Wyoming has our mills on certain corners of the state, and it actually makes them pretty successful because they're able to pull from other states and go back and forth. But there's a place in the center of the state that we've had a bit of a desert, and that's what we're really trying to focus in on and building that back up in certain areas. And that's kind of what those pilot programs are really focused in on and hone in on. But there has been a growing niche market. Specifically, I would say from the Black Hills and that whole northern half, and even in the south, where we have the firewood, we have small sawmills. We saw just a sawmill in Wheatland just reopen, a small one. So we're starting to see this desire of utilizing wood at a smaller scale, and that's what we want to see. We may not have large sawmills start right back up again. I've always tried to talk the Livingston mill to sell it and then come to Meeteetse and be in the middle of Wyoming. For some reason, they will not listen to me. In the meantime, how we can have more of that transportation and wood utilization across Wyoming, the better it is for all of us. So it is a good question. We really, in the last, I would say 2 years, have focused in on keeping the mills that we have going and keeping them with what they need. Governor Gordon had signed an executive order on August 1st of last year, and it's called Increase Active Management in Wyoming. And it's really focused in on how do we do more cross-boundary work together to get more active management done on our forests. And you want to add anything?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, you did want to just draw some attention to the 2 handouts that we passed out to you. Just a brief explanation on what you're looking at here. To start, we can look at the Wyoming Federal Lands Report. That's just going to give you an overview of what the program is and what we've accomplished from the inception in 2017. One thing that's not captured in here that I think is really important is that out of these 96 project contracts that you'll see total, I believe about 40 of those were from last year. That shows you the growth within the the recent past here, I guess, of what we're doing now with this Good Neighbor program and how quickly it is increasing. I also want to point out the Rob Roy handout that we passed out to you. I think this is just a great example of a Good Neighbor Authority project and what we're able to do as the state to kind of act as the mediator between a lot of different partners and stakeholders that might have interest in a certain area or a certain project. This Rob Roy project was on the Medicine Bow Route National Forest, and Rob Roy Reservoir, is a main component of Cheyenne's water supply. So that was identified as a really critical area that's been surrounded by wildfires that have happened in the recent years. And if those wildfires happen in that reservoir, all the sediment's going to end up in there and it's going to cost millions to dredge, like we've seen a lot in Colorado. So what the state was able to do was come in here and say, okay, Forest Service, we have your pot of funding. Now we actually have $100,000 roughly from timber receipts on a different timber sale that was done on the Medicine Bow. So we can bring that revenue that was earned on the forest back to the forest. And we also brought in the Board of Public Utilities with the city of Cheyenne, said this is probably a pretty important place for you guys. Is there anything you can do to help fund it so we can grow the project? So the city of Cheyenne did put up $100,000 for the project, and we were able to expand the acreage to make it more of an impactful project around the reservoir. So I think that's just one example. We've heard, there's a lot of utilization with a lot of these small sales. We're also doing large sales, but we're taking on 40% of the timber sales on the U.S. Forest Service lands in Wyoming in 2026.
Your information shows a lot of timber sales in the Bighorn National Forest. Is that mostly in the northern, in the Sheridan area, or is it southern, or where is that in the Bighorn National Forest?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I apologize here. There was a typo on this handout. The Black Hills National Forest and the Bighorn got switched. I will tell you that timber revenue is not necessarily going to tell you that we're doing more in one place over another. The value of that timber in the Black Hills is much higher than what we're getting on all of our other forests. But to your point, we are taking on roughly 50% of the timber program on the Bighorn National Forest right now, and most of that is on the southern end.
Oh. So the charts should be reversed for the Bighorn National Forest and Black Hills?
That's correct.
Hmm. Oh, so Nyman actually is doing quite a bit there, isn't he? I was going to comment on that, how he isn't doing very much.
He's a big,
Yeah,
busy
he
beaver.
is.
And one other great example that we have found with the Good Neighbor Authority program in particular is the use of salvage deck sales. So we started it actually in the Bighorns. They had Crater Ridge fire years ago. And the Forest Service, again, when we talk about the bureaucratic system, to turn around and take that wood that was cut on both sides of the road as the fuel break and do something with it was going to be this huge lift for them. And it had been fresh spruce trees. And the thing with very fresh spruce trees is that brings in the beetle. And they wanted it moved quickly. They wanted it moved out of there. It was sitting right along a bunch of timber in areas that could really be impacted. And so we were able to take the Good Neighbor Authority through the state contracting system, and we ended up selling it right away to a local contractor. And it went both sides of the Bighorns. It went down into the basin and went down into Sheridan. So it went both ways. And just recently, this last year, we sold off of the elk fire. We had a massive deck sale up there off the red grade. And again, I think that is up at around Thai Flume area. They moved it all up there, going both directions, quite a bit going down into the basin and coming into Sheridan. And we had another deck sale on the Shoshone. We did, I think, one on the Bridger Teton, and we did a large scale deck sale on the Medbow too. So those are the uses you see with this program. And the flexibility it can bring, which is extremely helpful to our timber industry at this time.
2 years ago, we had a huge forest fires in Wyoming. And this season, I think I can say we didn't have them and aren't going to have them. Is part of that the fuels reduction that you did, or did we just get lucky?
Mr. Chairman, must not have been in your neck of the woods where the fires were, because we had fires last year. The Red Canyon fire was devastating in Hot Springs County. We had the Dollar Lake fire that was in Sublette County. That was pretty large. And we had the Willow fire that was, gosh, I was getting nervous there around night, about Alpine and that whole area. So we did have fires that we just saw them more on the western side of the state this past year. Where we did active management work, it really helped. It made a big difference. And we saw that actually on, I think, the Willow fire itself. It held right at the road, didn't cross the highway. It was a big deal. And so where we have that active management, it does make a difference. It really reduces suppression costs when it comes to wildfire suppression. Think about when you're ordering aviation, the amount of cost it is for retardant, things like that. And also when you have structures around, we start immediately ordering dozers, the whole thing, right? And so the more we have active management on the ground, there's a major rate of return on that when it comes to wildfires and fire suppression.
So is 2,500 acres in whatever this time frame is that what where we should be, or should that be triple or double, or should we have more acres that we're reducing the fire fuel?
Mr. Chairman, that is a good question. We should always be doing more. I think the reason you're not seeing more in the Good Neighbor Authority program is the Forest Services tends to keep that money and does it themselves quicker. And we just haven't done as much fuels mitigation work per se through the contracting system. We've really been focused in on the timber sales side because again, the timber sales produce the revenue for us to keep paying for our employees. The fuels mitigation work costs money typically. It's a service type of contract. But that's not to say we haven't. Obviously, you saw over almost 2,500 acres was completed. It just depends on, I think, where the priorities are and where those forests are at and the projects that we're at. So I know out of that, you also see there's aspen enhancement. There's also thinning work that's done in that table. So those could also be contributors to fuels reduction and mitigation work. They're just different types of contracting.
Other questions for the Forest Service? State Forest? Other questions? Hearing none, thank you. Thank you, Representative. Anyone else like to speak on Senate File 17? And they come out of the woodwork.
That's supposed to be fun.
Yeah, yeah.
No, note that.
Okay, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Bill Novotny here on behalf of the Wyoming County Commissioners Association. We'd just like to quickly share our support for this very critical change. In my own county, we've used Good Neighbor Authority to protect the Clear Creek watershed and the city of Buffalo's water supply. This is a good tool. We have a great relationship with the State Forester's Office, and I'd like to please encourage you to move this bill forward. Stand for any questions, Mr. Chairman.
It sounded like he was kind of making some time with the Forest Service. Kind of.
Now, Mr. Chairman, you are a Johnson County boy, so be careful.
Any questions for Mr. Novotny, Commissioner Novotny? Hearing none? Okay, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Shad Cooper. I serve as a member of the Wyoming Fire Advisory Board, which represents the Wyoming Rural Fire Association for all 23 counties. I'm here. I'm also speaking as a county fire warden for Sublette County Unified Fire. I just wanted to briefly stand in support of the bill and express in Sublette County, this bill, or I'm sorry, the work that Good Neighbor Authority has provided has absolutely made a difference. I don't want to put State Forester on the spot, but realistically, the only work that's being done in Sublette County is a result of the Good Neighbor Authority projects that are going through. It's absolutely incentivized the Forest Service to get project work done, and it's made a difference in reducing hazardous fuels. And they've been able to prioritize some critically hazardous areas of Sublette County that are at risk of wildland fire. And the GNA program is just been monumental in accomplishing hazardous fuel reduction and risk reduction in Sublette County. So we absolutely support it and would ask for your favorable consideration.
Thank you. Questions? Hearing none. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Bill Krapser. I'm the retired state forester. Been retired for 3 years now. Listening to State Forester Norris, you definitely traded up in your state foresters. We started working in 2010 with Senator Barrasso's office to get the Good Neighbor Authority. As State Forester Norris said, it was the 2016 Farm Bill before that actually got done. We moved forward with quite a few projects. When you guys first passed the statute forming the revolving account and having the 4 AWACS, I never dreamed in my life that it was going to get more traction and get to be a better program than it was. So for the little bit I put into it, I'm really proud of where State Good Neighbor is right now, and I'd sure urge you to move the bill forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none. Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Thanks for coming to our meeting. Anyone else like to speak on the anyone else like to speak on this good little bill?
We're filling the chairs in this one.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Travis McNevin here on behalf and with the Intermountain Forest Association. I will turn the time over briefly. I do want to thank a former State Forester Krapser. I'm very familiar with a certain staffer on the Barrasso office that was there from 2010 to 2016 on Good Neighbor Authority. And so certainly have a fair amount of background in those 6 years of said life. But so with that, certainly turn the time over to the Forestry Association, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Ben Woodkey. I'm the Executive Director for Intermountain Forest Association, representing the timber industry here. I know we're up against a little bit of time, so I'll keep this short. I wanted to make a few remarks and say that, we've been talking about the timber industry a little bit here, and the beauty about the timber industry in Wyoming is that it's incredibly diverse. You have everything from a little bit larger sawmills, like the Nyman sawmill referenced earlier up in Hewlett, which directly supports that community, to smaller sawmills such as Lodgepole Products down in Laramie, and lots of others in between. And they all take a little bit different product. They all take a little bit different quantity to keep those companies running, keep those companies sustained and sustain those communities. That's one of the beauties about the state GNA program, is that it's not a one size fits all. It's not one flavor. It offers support for doing forest management projects that benefit all of the timber industry across the state. As you can see in your chart, the state GNA program has been paramount in getting the timber sale program going in the Black Hills, keeping that program sustained, keeping the forest management happening. I've personally witnessed numerous homes and communities saved from the efforts of the state and other forest management efforts in getting this work done. And I'd urge you to support this bill today.
Good. Thank you.
My name's Eric South, UNA County Commissioner. Just to know, in UNA County, there's 2 sawmills that my family runs that I grew up in my whole life and still participate some. This Good Neighbor Authority has been a very great tool for the timber industry, and because it's so much easier to work with state of Wyoming than it is with the Forest Service, because they just have a hell of a time getting their feet off the ground to get anything done. There's so much bureaucrat BS in it, excuse my French, but so anyway, I really urge you to pass this bill, and they've done a good job prior, and it's been a pleasure to be able to work with the state of Wyoming and with years ago with Bill and now with Kelly, and so we appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, you guys. Anyone else come before the Senate Minerals Committee? Do we have somebody online? We have one on. Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim McGadden with the Wyoming Stock Growers Association. Just wanted to briefly emphasize how important this is to our industry as well. We depend across the state for livestock grazing on national forest lands as a critical component of our operations. And what we're seeing increasingly is that as these forests become overcrowded with timber, improperly managed, the livestock can't even get into many of these areas to graze them. And the grazing is not only critical to us, but it's also an important wildfire prevention tool by keeping those undergrowths grazed down to an appropriate level. So this is very important to us, and the Good Neighbor Authority is key to making that happen. So just want to offer our full support for this legislation. Be happy to take any questions.
Questions for? No questions. Thank you, sir. We're running short of time. You do have one on the Zoom.
Yes, Mr.
I think
Chairman.
that took care of the room. So let's move to the Zoom real quick. And we may have to hold this over for next week or next.
Give him 1 minute. I bet we get done.
We can do this.
We can do this. We got this. Yes.
Let's see if she can do it real quick.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, yes, I can. Kelly Carpenter, Wyoming Farm Bureau Federation. I'd like to offer our full support for this bill. Would like to echo a lot of the sentiments expressed by the previous speaker, as they impact a lot of our members as well. With that, I'll take any questions.
Questions? No questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
That's perfect.
Okay. That concludes the public testimony. I'll close public testimony, and committee, what's your pleasure? Move the bill, seconded by Jones. Any discussion?
Mr.
Any
Chairman?
discussion? Yes.
Page 3, move to strike lines 14 and 15. The prohibition on accepting property, it'll probably never happen, but there's no reason for us to put it in statute. We already have a lot of provisions about maintaining certain amounts of property in the state, so I don't think we need to restrict it. It would probably end up getting sold or swapped or something along those lines, because we have a window of how many acres we need, so move to strike.
Is there a second on that amendment? Second by Cooper. Seconded by Cooper. Any further discussion? Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We will strike line 14, 15 on page 3. Any other changes? Any other changes? Question on the bill? We'll do a roll call vote on this because Rothfuss is here.
It'd be best.
Go ahead, Sue.
Mr. Chairman, this is a roll call vote on Senate File 17 as amended. Senator Cooper?
Aye.
Senator Jones? Senator Nethercott? Mr. Chairman, Senator Nethercott has left an absentee vote of aye.
Right.
Senator Rothfuss?
Aye.
Chairman Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, you have 5 ayes.
Wonderful. That barely squeaked by too. There, Representative Worf. All right. Yeah, he scored today, didn't he? Okay, with that, we're adjourned, and we'll meet on Friday for 3 exciting bills that Senator Rothfuss will help us with.
I think we should add timber sales to our minerals joint resolution.
Yeah.
Didn't disappoint. You guys approved both.